An Explanation of Inflation Fetishism. An essay by Cleverfoxman. As an inflation fetishist, I have a great fascination with the cartoonish ballooning of people. I'm not the best writer and by no means a psychologist, but I have come to the conclusion that not everyone knows about inflation fetishism. I wish to expound my thoughts, feelings, and wish to give a general understanding of IF to the best of my ability. The first question one would ask is, what is IF? The most basic explanation is that inflation fetishism is the fascination or sexual fascination of a person's body parts expanding larger than human body proportions should allow. This explanation is quite broad, and there are many different niche groups that differ greatly. There are groups that like different inflated body parts, genders, animals versus people, inanimate objects, and even what happens afterwards, like bursting, infinite inflation, and etc. Going back to the initial definition that I have given, IF is an affinity based on a transformation. Some people like to focus on the transformation process itself, the cause and effect, or a mixture of both. It all boils down to the types of inflation one prefers to the other. I will dive into the most broad and popular inflation types and then go from there. From my personal experience, it comes down to what media one is subjected to when one is in their developmental stages. When I was about 6 to 8 years old, I watched many films and cartoons. One of my favorite films at the time was the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. This film has a scene where a character by the name of Violet Beauregarde eats an unstable gum and causes her to swell into the shape of a blueberry. Since this is one of the first women that I was exposed to in film, in my age range, with any lasting memory, I was somewhat attracted to her. What happened to her also frightened me, in a way that left a clear mental image of a girl's body expanding outwards in all directions. As a child, I was also exposed to an abundance of cartoons. A common gag for laughs in a cartoon is when a character swells up or expands when attached to a hose or an air pump. The constant bombardment of these stimuli turned into a sexual fetish when I started to hit puberty. This is the case with many people I have communicated with online. What movies and shows they have watched as children have greatly impacted the style of inflation they personally are attracted to today. Mentally, what makes a fetish appealing? Well, there are two key positions in inflation media. There is the inflator, the person who is inflating someone, and the inflatee, the person being inflated. People who see themselves as the inflatee like the idea of their body expanding outwards. The idea of pressure building up inside them as their body pushes out in all directions is a turn-on for the inflatee. An inflator, on the other hand, finds joy in inflating someone to either constrict them with their own bodies or feel them expand or to have sex with an inflated person. One of the most popular types of inflation is breast expansion. Many people who aren't into inflation can still be sexually aroused to cartoonishly large breasts. It is one of the most sexualized body parts of the female anatomy, to the point where people actually want larger breasts in reality, i.e. breast implants. Butt expansion falls under the same category with minor variations. Belly inflation is also on the top of the inflation list. This one harbors back to the cartoon inflations where a character generally expands outwards from the center of their being. To quickly sum up many other inflation types, if there is a body part or an object in existence, it expanding larger and rounder could be conceived as sexually arousing to someone. A large amount of inflation fetishists are attracted to more than one type of inflation. I personally am sexually attracted to the large bellies, butts, and breasts. All three of these factors combined at the same time cause an immense arousal that a regular nude picture of a woman would not supply. Some people might prefer a large butt, a mildly distended stomach, and small breasts. The combinations are endless, making a finite analysis of IF nearly impossible. Still, staying in the realm of inflation types, one must also address how large a subject gets and what causes the subject to get larger. The most common method of inflating a person is either with water or air. A new trend that is going around in the community is the slime inflation, in which a goo monster forces itself into someone. This can go into the vor fetish, but that is a completely different beast entirely. Another popular inflation method among sexual fans is the cum inflation. This is when a character comes so much into another character that the cum starts filling up that character like a balloon. How big a character gets is also a point of arousal. This range can go from a character becoming large as a pregnant person or the size of the universe. I personally like it when a character becomes the size of a room. There is no limit to how big a character can get, unless one is a fan of popping or bursting. In the inflation community, bursting is somewhat taboo. There are two types, one being more acceptable in the community than the other. When a character reaches their bursting point, they could pop and be cartoonishly fine, with spirals in their eyes and what have you. This is more accepted. The more radical lust for popping is when a character explodes and dies gorily. Many people shun that version because they don't want death to be part of their sexual fantasies. I prefer the latter because it establishes a limit to where dramatic tension can be built. Bursting, however, can be a metaphorical climax to the inflation experience. Inflation could be the swelling escalation of sexual intercourse, and popping could be, in the mind of an inflation fetishist, ejaculation. I hope that this short paper was able to explain a little about the massively broad inflation fetish. As stated, there are so many variants of this inflation fetish that it is near impossible to touch on all the subjects at once. This is just my 2 cents on the subject. Thank you for taking the time to watch this.